Hi, Danville. Alan Shields here, Chief of Police for the town, and we are 10-8 and in service, which means we are here to make people's lives better, and we do that by safeguarding the lives, rights, and property of everyone we serve. Thank you for joining tonight. This is a live show, so if you have any questions, just throw them right in the chat. We'd be happy to answer the questions, and if we can't get to it during the show, we'll make sure to get to it in the chat afterwards. We do have a few things we want to cover tonight, but I did want to start off with saying if you wanted an update about the storms and the response to the storms and what the town did in response to the storms, frankly, I can't say it better than the town manager, Joe Calabrigo, and our maintenance services director, Dave Castile, said it. So what I did was I put a link in the description because last night they presented to the town council a very comprehensive look at what happened here in town and our response to it. So if you want to see that, in fact, I'm going to charge you. I would really, really encourage you go down there and look at that. They gave a very good presentation. The one thing I'll say is it's a general view of the town council. So you kind of just have this one static shot. What you're going to want to do though, is you're going to want to also download the PowerPoint slideshow that they had and presented to the council that night, because it's got a lot of facts and figures and it's got a lot of photos in there that will really help illustrate the problem that we had and what our response was. We're also going to cover a few items. As always, I want to encourage you to go and download the FEMA All Hazards Checklist. Up here, you can see I've got be prepared for an earthquake, but it's got all kinds of hazards in there to include floods, earthquakes, cyber attacks, actually financial, coronavirus type things. I mean, it's got everything in there. And the big part is it says what you can do now to prepare so that you are not caught off guard with one of these events. You know, what you can do to survive during an event, and then how you can be safe and build after one of those events happens. It's a really good guide. There is a link in the description. Just click download it. We say just print these guides out and do that. And if you look at the earthquake example, it talks about what to do during an earthquake. So this is kind of an example of the infographic that they use to demonstrate that. But it is a good guide. You can go over it with your family. Just take a little bit of time so that you're that much more prepared. And what I hope it does is allow you to look at it and then look at your own environment. Same with our wildfire preparedness and evacuation guide. We also want people to sign up for community warning system alerts. That way they can be alerted with that system and Nixle if there is a disaster. And in the wildfire preparedness guide, same thing. It really, when we talk about it, and we'll cover it again in spring of this year, it talks about how to be prepared for these events, how you can prepare your yard and your area, how you can prepare your family, how you can be prepared so should a wildfire strike, you'll be in the best position possible to mitigate any risk and survive that with the best possible outcome. So I encourage you, please download those. Those are really good guides. I'm going to cover 2 weeks worth of traffic and crime because we did miss last week. So I'm going to go over them. The traffic data though is going to be on one slide, and I broke the crime data down into 2 slides. First off, you can go to communitycrimemap.com and get the information direct from there. We upload several times a day, and you can also get sexual offender registry information there as well. So for collisions, we had on December 26th or through December 26th through January 8th, and those totals are are wrong. That's why I was pausing there. We did have a non-injury hit and run in the Costco parking lot on the 30th. We had a injury collision on the 500 block of El Cap, and this one was actually someone riding their bicycle, and this was right after that flooding had happened, and there was still a lot of silt and all that in a lot of the roadways. And the reason I want to bring that up is these roads, even though they may be open when rain is coming down or the environment is such that they still may not be 100% safe. They may not be where, like right now it's raining. So certainly they're going to be more slippery. So we should slow down and drive safe and maybe consider different modes of travel or staying inside during those times. I felt really bad for that person on the bike that had that crash. So we want to really be careful with that. On the first, we had a non-injury collision on Roberts Court. On the second, we had another non-injury collision, Diablo Road at Avenida Nueva. And then on the 6th, We had 3 hit and run reports that were turned in. We call them counter reports. And that was on Diablo Road at Green Valley, Centerway and Tassajara Ranch Drive, and Costco parking lot. This doesn't mean that those events occurred on the 6th. It just means that simply they were reported to us on the 6th. And let me put a little more context on that. We take crime reports according to the collision manual. And what that directs us to do is if there is a collision and there is a fatality, an injury, or a dispute to cause, or any crime, then I direct my officers to take the report. If it's a minor fender bender between 2 parties, no injuries, and they're exchanging information and there's no issues with that, no concerns over fault, then our officers will help facilitate the exchange of information. And if they choose, the people that are driving the cars can actually write their own report, which we call a counter report. We give them a form and they fill it out. The only exception to the crime one is hit and runs where there is no injury to persons and there's no lead information. We just ask people to fill out the counter report and turn those in. So that's why you may see something like this where we get, on the 6th, we got 3 of them turned in one day. So that's what that looks like. All right. And then again, if you have a question, please ask it in the chat. I'll do my best to answer it. Crime is another story. We had a fair amount of crime that holiday week between December 26th and January 1st. And I'm going to kind of jump back and forth in and out of the slide. On the December 26th, we had a stolen bicycle from a garage on Paraiso Drive. It was immediately reported to us and the suspect was arrested. This one was absolutely awesome. There was a family, and what they were doing was they were getting ready to leave. So they were in and out of the garage. The garage door was open. The homeowner gets an alert on his phone that there was a person detected in their driveway. He checks his phone and he sees the suspect walking away with his bicycle. He immediately calls police, does not intervene. So he does, and we repeat this message over and over again. He was a great witness because he described exactly what he saw, what the crime was, and the direction the person was going, as well as the person's description. So we're able to flood that area with cops. And it was actually one of our Valley Station units that came down, saw the person, and was able to arrest him a short distance later. So kudos to the homeowner. Great job for doing that. And this is how we work in partnership with our community to make sure that we're all working together to keep people safe. So great job by our homeowner and an awesome example of being a good witness. All right. So on the 26th, we had a stolen vehicle from Santa Clara Drive. We did work hard on that case. This was one where we did have lead information, and this is what you don't see behind the scenes, is we did an extensive amount of follow-up. Ultimately, the vehicle was recovered in Oakland unoccupied. We were hoping to get information on that, and we're still working that case, but we do an extensive amount of follow-up on these cases. On the 27th, we had a shoplift of merchandise from the Smart and Final on Diablo Road. On the 27th, a stolen SUV on El Dorado Avenue. And as it would happen, as our detective was working to track that one down, our base station deputies, our sheriff's base station deputies, actually recovered the vehicle occupied and arrested the driver. So we were able to return that SUV to the owner. On the 28th, we had a package theft on the 800 block of Camino Ramon. And then on the 30th, we had a stolen bicycle from the garage on Weber Lane. On the 31st, we had a report of a stolen bench from the front yard of a home on Mission Place. And on the 1st, we had a residential burglary of a home on Wood Ranch Circle. So on that stolen bench, we do have some footage. So one of the neighbors had or I think it was actually our victim neighbor, had surveillance of their front yard. And so I'm going to show you a picture. And again, I'm going to ask, we send this picture out because we're asking for your help, the public, the community, to identify this person. What we don't want is we don't want to publicly shame the person. If you know who it is, what we'd simply ask that you do is send us a direct message, a private message, an email, call us on the phone and say, hey, I believe I know who this person is. And so if you can look at this photo real quick, this is a theft of a bench that took place on Mission Place, December 31st at 9:39 a.m. And it was related to a crime that happened the next week, last week, where there was a similar MO. So the things I want you to look at, the person's wearing shorts. He's wearing what looks like a checkered hoodie. That's somewhat identifiable. It's not just plain. And he's wearing like this light, like very neon green mask. And then he's got some shoes with some socks that have lettering on the side. So if you know who that person is, we'd love to know too. So if you can help us and help your neighbors out, please send us a direct message or an email if you know who this person is. All right, let's move on to the following week. So the following week was a little bit better for crime. January 2nd through the 8th, on December 19th, we had a theft from a locked vehicle on the 400 block of Everett Drive. We had bicycles that were stolen from the yard on the 1000 block of Alicante Place. And I'm noticing that this slide did not get updated, so I'm going to apologize for that. And I'm going to go to my notes. So bear with me. I'm going to read the notes. For some reason, when I transferred that slide over, it did not. It got some of the information right, but it did not get the rest of it. Okay, so we had a, let's see here. So we had a 211 strong arm, and this was the one at the parking lot of the Wells Fargo Bank. And this one was not great. The victim in this case had pulled up, parked her car in front of the bank, and people smashed the windows on both sides, reached in, grabbed the purse, and fled with the property. We've done an extensive amount of follow-up on that. We believe ultimately that we will be able to close that case. And when we say close the case, we mean solve it. We mean bring that person to justice. So we are continuing to work hard on that case. On the 3rd, we had a catalytic converter theft of a Prius. And then on the 5th, we had a shoplift arrest from the Safeway out in the Blackhawk end of town. On the 5th, we had a catalytic converter theft of a Toyota Sequoia on Amesbury Court. And then on the 9th, we had a theft of a catalytic converter on El Alamo that then turned into an assault with a deadly weapon, where our victim in this case went out and there was a confrontation between both the victim and the suspect in that case. And so we're working hard on that case to resolve it. What I'd like to say, though, is we started off the crime with a victim that noticed a crime occurring and stayed off at a distance, reported what he saw, and we were able to get the person in custody. And that is the preferred method. That is what we prefer. In no way am I ever taking away or suggesting that you should not defend your person. But what we're saying is we know we will have the most successful outcomes when you simply make the report and you be a good witness. What I do want to cover real quick is the crime triangle. We haven't covered it in several months, so I wanted to throw it up real quick just as a reminder for what we can do with crime. In order for crime to occur, we need 3 things. We need a motivated offender. That is a person that's willing to steal your property. We need a location for the crime to occur. So this could be a dark parking lot. This could be a house that looks like it's unoccupied. It can be a business that looks like it is run down, not taken care of, and not looked after. And then you need a victim. You need a target. You need either a person that is, maybe in a location that is suitable for crime, or you need a target that is a purse on a front seat, a backpack on a front seat, or a home that looks like it's unoccupied with stuff in it. You need something to be victimized. And so what we simply ask people to do is, knowing that the motivated offender is the hardest of the 3 legs of that stool to control, let's all work together on those other 2. All right, I'm going to check the chat and see if there's any questions. Lou makes a comment. He says, dodge the eucalyptus tree on task by about 5 minutes. Well, Lou, I'm glad you were on the 5-minute side on that one, because that was a huge tree. What Lou Plummer is talking about is Monday morning at about 4 a.m. we had maybe it was Tuesday morning. At 4 a.m., we had a eucalyptus go down on Communitas west of Wood Ranch Circle. When it went down, our officers went out there. We rerouted traffic. We put out that Nixle alert. And then our maintenance crew was out there with a ton of trucks. They brought contractors out, moved the tree, cut it up, got the lanes open, really in time for commute traffic, which I thought was pretty amazing. I mean, the tree fell at 4 to 4:20 in the morning, and the roadway was open both directions by 7 o'clock. And so that was absolutely amazing by our maintenance crew. But those trees are hazardous, and I don't want to speak on behalf of our town manager, but I know that he is working to remove more of those eucalyptus trees. All right. So a lot of thanks for what our officers do, but let me say this, and I am very appreciative of that because our officers work day and night, and they've been out in this rain, and we've been really getting soaked going out there. When it comes to disasters like this, so when a flood occurs, from the police department side, a lot of our staff, even on New Year's Eve, we pulled them back in and said, hey, we need you to come back to work because we needed to, one, respond to these increase in incidents that were occurring with the floods, but we also needed to be able to respond to your 911 call. So if you called 911, we still had the same amount of staff able to respond to that while having staff on through the night to respond to power lines down, trees down, flooded roadways, and that sort of thing. So kudos to our team and great job. And I do appreciate all of you recognizing that. But a special thanks goes to our maintenance department. They have been working shift after shift after shift, cleaning the roads, working to keep them open, working to do preventative maintenance to make sure that the impact of these storms isn't greater than it already is. And again, I'm going to throw out the call. Go in the description after this. There is a presentation that both the town manager, Joe Calabrigo, and our maintenance director, Dave Castile, gave to the town council. And it is a phenomenal presentation. If you want to know what happened in the town of Danville as it related to the storms and what our response was, you're not going to find a better presentation than that. And coupled with the presentation, because it is a video presentation, you'll see the council there and you'll see our presenters on one side. Download the PDF attachment that is their presentation document, because that has a lot of pictures in it, a lot of very detailed information about what the response looked like and what the hazard was. So make sure you download that because there's a lot of good information there. Celeste says, thank you. The Wells Fargo robbery was scary. Yeah, Celeste, I agree. And when we see that, we are going to send a lot of officers and detectives on that. And we're working with other agencies as well. So a lot of work goes into that. All right, looking at the rest here. Oh, so Gary says, I'm hopeful that our fine team can get out soon and address the numerous significant potholes on Communitas and Sycamore. So Gary, thanks for bringing that up. That's a good point. When we get heavy rains like this, and this has happened at least a few times since I've been here as an officer, those roads will start to create potholes. So we have, I talked to our maintenance director today, and he's got a team that's coming out tomorrow to go essentially from one side of town to the other and work on those potholes. So we hope to have that issue resolved by tomorrow. So Gary, thanks for bringing that up because it allows me to send the information out. So thank you. Also last night, I gave a presentation, and I gave a presentation on several topics, mental health response, disaster preparedness. So kind of what we talk about on the show about being prepared, and then some of the training that our officers have been receiving. What I'd like to do is I'm going to break it down into 3 parts. I'll cover it over the next few weeks. The first part being mental health. And so we'll go over that now. And what I want us to do is start with a story. About 5 or 6 years ago, I received a call from a father whose daughter had been in crisis, said some things that led him to believe that his daughter wanted to hurt herself. Calls us because who else do you call? You call the police. We go out there, and then the daughter had said things that led the officer at the time to believe that she was a danger to herself due to a mental disorder. And when that occurs, and I'm throwing the definition up here, when an officer determines that someone is a danger to themselves, others, are gravely disabled due to a mental condition, the officer has the authority to detain the person for a 72-hour hold. And that's what the officer did. There wasn't anything in the field in the intermediate step. If we can find people before crisis, we can refer them to their primary care provider, whether it's John Muir, Kaiser, Stanford Health, Valley Care, or we can refer them to County Hospital. There's services up there, but those are services that you have to go to. There wasn't anything that would respond out to the field. So once moment of crisis is happening in the field, the police officer was all you had coming. Over the past several years, there have been a push to get new programs up. But let's, before we talk about those programs, let's look at our numbers through the year. So if you look at over a 10-year period of time between 2013 and 2022, we averaged about 93 commitments each year. It's actually 93.3. So you can see that we kind of, if you're going to use investing terminology, we essentially trade sideways. We're not necessarily trending up or down over this period of time. We're kind of just going up and down. And so we're not flat, so to speak. We've had a couple of peaky years in there, but essentially we stay at or around that 93 point. So that's what our numbers look like. But what does our response look like? And what I'm happy to say is that the response is getting better because there are services and programs that are now aimed at sending non-law enforcement into the field and helping. And I'll say that we've had one that's been very successful, and that is our MET team, our mental health evaluation team. This is a program that pairs a mental health clinician with a deputy sheriff. And if you think about it, this team is one where if we get alerted to someone that's maybe on the verge of being in crisis or they're trending in that direction, we will make a referral to that team, the mental health evaluation team, and they act more like case managers. So what they do is, instead of waiting for the person to be in crisis, they actually visit them when they're not in crisis, and they try to work with the patient, the family, and try to convince them to go seek services. And we know over the years 2021 and 2022, we have made 19 referrals each year to the mental health evaluation team. And I can say, without running through each case with all of you, that when we've referred people to the MET team, either because they're pending crisis or they just had a crisis and we think there's going to be another crisis, we have not had future calls out there. We haven't had calls from the neighbors. We haven't had calls from the family. The calls stop because this team is going out there with such frequency and they're getting some results. So it's a great program. The other program that you may be aware of is A3. It's commonly referred to as A3, and it's anyone, anywhere, anytime. This is something with Contra Costa Health that is working on to meet unmet behavioral health needs, and it provides timely service throughout the county. Currently, they're operating 5 days a week, but they're hoping to expand those hours. What you should know, though, is as part of the Sheriff's Office, the Danville Police Department, our staff, we refer every mental health case to A3. So when we go out, we're going to make that referral to A3. The question about A3 is what does it look like? So if you're a resident of Danville and either you call A3 directly or we call on your behalf because the call came into our dispatch center, what does it look like? If you're an adult, it's going to look like an MCRT response, which is a mental health crisis response team. And this is going to be a team of clinicians, and they're going to choose how they respond. So the response may be a simple phone call to either the patient or a family member to see if they can guide them towards services. The response may be a field response where an MCRT clinician comes out and responds into the field. And then it may be a field response coupled with law enforcement because the environment is such that they feel it is safer to do it in the presence of law enforcement. So that's what we have for adults. But how do we make sure we're not leaving kids behind? And that's a response with our Seneca Center partners. So Seneca Center is a program that is not just unique to Contra Costa. It's a large program. And the idea is they want to provide integrated services for children in order to get them stabilized and in the community. In fact, our officers, we're actually having a Seneca Center rep come out. I'm looking at the calendar here, come out next week, and they're going to train us. And we also invited our partners over at the school district to come down and, hey, let's see what Seneca Center has to offer. And so that's a good program. And then the last program that I'd like to talk about is our fire partners. San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District has launched a public safety for mental health program. They are in the midst of getting that program on to hit the road. And what it is it's a first responder approach to nonviolent mental health emergencies. The idea being that if it's a nonviolent call, you will see a specially trained firefighter paramedic respond out to the field in front of an officer. Officers may go out there as well, but we would be staged around the corner, so to speak. So we'd be close by in case the event turned into something violent. We could respond quickly, but the fire personnel, the specially trained fire personnel, would be there first, and they would attempt to seek some sort of resolution. All right. I'm going to check and see if we've got anything else here in the chat. As a reminder, if you haven't seen the town council meeting from last night, and I believe most people don't watch them. I know this, my bosses are going to shoot me on that one, but I don't, we don't get that much attendance is the bottom line. Like last night we had a ton of people there because we were honoring the football team, but typically, unless there's a hot topic item on there, we get maybe a dozen people in there, and then we get some viewers on. I would encourage you that this is an opportunity, up the viewership. This is the one to watch, because if you want to see what your town did during a disaster to mobilize, to be ahead of this as best we could and respond and clear the roads, that is the one to watch. And so go down in the description, click it. I think it starts at the 23-minute mark if you want to see Dave Castillo's presentation, but it is certainly one to watch. So Celeste also says, it was amazing how fast they cleared it. Celeste, here's what I'll say to that. If I went down to some of my neighbors' homes and we were kind of trying to help them move some of the dirt from their driveways and such, it felt like it took forever, but objectively, it was lightning fast. They did an awesome job. If you're, again, I understand the scale or the issue of perspective. If you're the one walking in the mud, it's going to seem like it takes forever. But absolutely, when I looked at it and I looked at how hard it was to move that silt, that mud, that sludge, it was an incredible job they did. And they mobilized a lot of staff members, a lot of consultants to come down and work on that. So they just did a fantastic job. And if you look, some of the sludge, it was so hard to move. They would try to pick it up with the bucket truck. And by the time they got to the large truck to dump it in, a third to a half of it was gone because it was sloshing out because it was so watery. And so they did a great job. So Celeste, I'm glad that you noticed that. And I think we got a little bit of help from Mother Nature as our maintenance crews went and cleaned a lot of it up. Mother Nature dropped a little bit of rain on us, and we're able to help get it there. Gary says, will our license plate readers read temporary tags? So what Gary is talking about, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, when you buy a new car, no longer do we do those stickers in the windows that have the month for registration. What they do now is they'll actually issue you a printed license plate that's got numbers on it that is unique to your car, and it comes back to the VIN on that car. Our license plate readers do read those. They read personalized plates, specialized plates. They read all of those. And if you've got no plate on the car, the cameras will still take a picture of the car. So we still get a description. And if you remember back, this is at least a month and a half ago now, I gave a robbery update where we were able to capture the car on our license plate camera, and it had some unique identifiers on it, but it did not have a plate. So what our detective did was continue to search, and within about 6 months was able to find that car again, but this time with a plate on it, and was able to backtrack that and solve the case. So they do work in that way. Sue says she saw the boats on El Capitan. Yeah, there were a few boats out there. Kudos to the fire department, those that wished to be rescued from their homes and did not want to shelter in place. Fire did an excellent job of getting out there and doing their water rescue, and they did very well. Sue, I have to admit, I did see your neighbors shoveling the court, and I was a little further down El Cap helping the neighbors down there, but your neighbors seem to do a good job of clearing their court. And I know these floods and disasters are things that we don't want to have happen, but if I'm looking for the silver lining in this, is there were so many community members that were out there. I saw kids as young as like 5 and 6 years old out there trying to help. And I saw a lot of people. So it was a good cross section of the community that came together and helped out. So it was great. Gary asks another question. Would a no plate issue an alert? Currently, the system does not do no plate alerts, but that is what our officers come into play, and knowing that bad guys wishing to do harm may pull the plate off the car or put a stolen plate on the car. They're looking for those things as well. All right. So as always, I'm going to make one more plug for this. Go down in the description, really click on the link for last night's town council meeting. It is one of the best presentations for community service that I have ever seen. When you talk about making people's lives better, that should make you proud to live in this town. Our maintenance staff did an excellent job, and I'm proud of them. And I think you all would be too, but you really need to see the detail of what they did. And so please download that report, watch that video. It is an awesome representation of what they did. But also go down in the description and download this FEMA All Hazards Checklist, We've been pushing it for, well, all of them for well over a year. But this will allow you to be prepared should a disaster happen, and also sign up for our community warning system alerts, and then download our wildfire preparedness and evacuation guide. Those are the ways you can be prepared. And it's not, no one's saying spend 10 days preparing yourself for all these variety of disasters. Most of them have commonalities. If you download that and you look at it, it's have, some sort of fortification for your house, whether it's for a fire, for a flood, for an earthquake. Have a way to make your house safer. Be prepared to leave if you have to. And what does that look like with go bags and that sort of thing? It's those simple things that really translate to a variety of different disasters that we may face that we can all do to be a little bit better prepared. All right. With that, I'm going to look. It looks like there's a few more things in the chat here. Just want to make sure I get them all. Okay. The tree. Okay. Oh, Sue brings up something good. Sue, I'm glad you brought this up. I meant to bring it up and I forgot. So great job. It says, I was pretty concerned about the drain that was filled with garbage and just floating to the top. So Sue, that's a great point. So in front of my house, I've got and it just happens when we get significant rains. A lot of times our manhole cover will pop for our storm sewer. And then you'll see that, there's sticks and debris that are swept up. Because as the rains come and they come down the mountain and they come through all the creeks, and the creeks rise, it's going to pick up trash and debris and all that stuff, and it's going to send it down there. And so what I did, and I learned this from my neighbor who I saw out there years and years ago kind of cleaning it out, was I just, I cleaned the drain out. So I cleaned it out, put the manhole cover back so nobody was running that thing over. And then there's a drain right down the street from me as well that had a bunch of leaves and all the stuff that gets blown into the drain. And so I kind of just took my shovel and I cleaned that off real quick, and then water's able to flow in there a lot better. But our town maintenance did go around to, I looked at the list, but they went around to over 90 locations where there were storm drains and trash racks and those sort of things, making sure that they were clear, making sure that the drains were running. So they did do a good job on that. But I would say that if you have a drain in front of your house and you can sweep the leaves out, that's something we can all do to make sure that it's safe. So I appreciate you, Sue, for bringing that up. And again, kudos to your court for doing a good job of cleaning that up. All right. Gary says we should all adopt a storm drain and keep the leaves from going in. Gary, that's good advice. And I think most people do. I mean, I think most people in their communities, I saw a lot of people. In fact, before the January 4th storm, went down over by Everett, and I was going to look at the drains over there, and I had my shovel ready to go. And I saw a husband and wife out in the intersection of Brookside and Everett. And I was like, hey, how's it going? And he was already out there clearing them all. And he's like, they look like they're draining fine. And that's typically the case, is the drains underneath are usually pumping pretty good. It's the top part of the drain that may get clogged. And so that's good. So Lou, if you see debris or flooding, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to answer that question in the chat, because I'm going to put a whole host of numbers of who you can call. It's the same numbers that we've been putting out, but I want to make sure that I give a complete answer to that. So Lou's question of, if we see these kinds of debris or flooding, who do we call? I'm going to give you all those numbers in the chat. I'm going to respond directly to yours. Yeah. And Sue, I'm sorry. So Sue says the storm drain has a bolt on it. It can't be opened by us. So Sue, please don't, and nobody attempt to open these storm drains. I mean, that really is something for a maintenance person to do. What I'm talking about is the very simple, just the stuff on top. If we can keep that clear, I think that's the good advice. Everything else, I'll give you some information on who to contact if there is something that's clogged up. All right. With that, I think that is it. So I am going to say 10-10, which means we're off duty, but we're always in service to you. Have a good night, Danville.